MTG Scoundrels, it's in the cardboard. Ladies and gentlemen, scoundrels of all ages, welcome back to another edition of Modern Weekly. Today on the docket, we have 5-color creativity against Hardened scales. Looks like mulligan decisions being made here. Both players going to 6 and a wooded foothills in passing for the 5-color creativity player. There is a Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp. And fetching down to 19 here, finding a Triome. Another Triumph Return and passing. Urza's Saga. Into a Patchwork Automaton. Ooh, into a Mana Tithe. Sneaky play there for the 5-color creativity player. And attacking for 1 with the Zabaz, taking us to 18 to 20. Untapping and drawing here. Looks like we're tapping for 2 and casting Wrenn and 6. And ticking down to ping the Zabaz, playing a Bloodstained Mire and passing. Inkmoth Nexus here for the Scales player. Looks like passing from there. Cracking the fetch. Into a tap Sacred Foundry, taking us down to 17 to 20. Untap and draw. Ticking up the Wrenn and 6, finding the Bloodstained Mire, playing it for turn and cracking, taking us down to at least 16 to 20. Yep, finding the Dwarven Mine here. Into Teferi Time Raveler. It looks like we are getting a tick up, and then an activated Urza's Saga on the end of turn. We have a trigger on the stack for the Urza's Saga. Looks like floating the mana. Interesting to see what they grab here. A difficult decision considering the board presence. Looks like we'll find another Zabaz the Glimmer Wasp. Land for turn. And there's a Hardened Scales played, namesake of the deck. Into a Walking Ballista. And looks like there's the prismatic ending in response to the Walking Ballista thanks to the tick up of the Teferi Time Raveler, exiling the Hardened Scales. And there is another Zabaz, the Glimmer Wasp. Modular triggers and such, putting an extra counter onto the Walking Ballista. Actually, extra 2 counters. And killing the dwarf off of the Dwarven Mine. This could be a precarious position here for the 5-color player. There's an attack into the Teferi Time Raveler, sending it down to 2 with 3 artifacts on the board. Looks like we have an uptick of the Ren and 6, finding the Bloodstained Mire. Uptaking to the Teferi and passing the turn. And there is an Ancient Stirrings for the Scales player. Alright. It's like found an Arcbound Ravager and cast an Arcbound Ravager. Ooh. Interesting choice here. Looks like it's a Leyline Binding targeting the Construct. Construct is dead. And there's the creativity, however the Walking Ballista killing the Dwarven Mine token that was going to be created there. Arcbound Ravager getting its +1/+1 counter. Guess we are deciding what to do here. Binding probably should have targeted the Walking Ballista there. There's an Ink Moth Nexus activation. The Ravager eating it. Putting counters on the Walking Ballista and attacking after it sacrifices itself. The Ravager, that is, sacrificing itself, putting the tokens on the Walking Ballista, and then the Ballista and Zabaz attacking the Teferi Time Raveler. And the Renin 6. And looks like another creativity, but the Ballista killing the Dwarf token. And from there we'll move on to game 2. Thank you so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. If you enjoy our content, please like and subscribe. We also have timestamps for the individual games in the description below. And where we can, we're also providing deck lists in the description down below as well, if you're interested in picking up any of these lists. A new feature we're looking to add here moving forward. Our two competitors today, we have Alex, who's been a mainstay of the modern scene in our local meta, mostly playing artifact decks, in this case Hardened scales. And we also have Chang here on 5-color creativity. First video on the channel here for Chang. Has become one of the beloved members of our modern community here, mostly on Hammer Time, 5-color creativity, the occasional 5-color rhinos. And looks like we'll be moving into game 2 here shortly. And we have a land and pass to start out. And turn 1 Hardened scales. That's what you want to see if you're the scales player. Looks like we have Cracking in the Wooded Foothills here. Finding a Triome. Looks to be Jetmir specifically. Arid Mesa and pass. Patchwork Automaton for the scales player here. And looks like we have a Crack into a Reprieve. Sending it back to hand, drawing a card. Taking us to 16 to 20. Land for turn and pass. is the Urza's Saga. Into the Ozolith. And casting the Walking Ballista here. Lightning Bolt taking care of the Walking Ballista. Dealing a damage. Oh no, decided to let it die, putting the counter on the Ozolith. Looks like we have a crack of the fetch to find the Dwarven Mine, into the creativity, finding Archon of Cruelty. The reason to play Indomitable Creativity in this format. Of course, Archon of Cruelty having one of the strongest ETBs and attack triggers in the game. You get to draw a card, your opponent discards a card. You Lightning Helix them. And it's a 6/6 flyer. Also, your opponent has to sacrifice a creature if there's one on board. Looks like there's the Patchwork Automaton and a Hangerback Walker. Of course, the Hardened scales doubling up the counters on each. The Hangerback Walker specifically was a pretty good play here for the scales player, considering they could sack it to the Archon if it attacks here and make a bunch of 1/1s that the Archon has to deal with. 1/1 flyers at that. And there is the Pick Your Poison. Looks like saying sacrifice an enchantment. Scales player happy to sacrifice the Urza's Saga here instead of the Hardened scales. Pick Your Poison, one of the best cards to come out of Murders of Karlov Manor, that is, excuse me. Looks like we have an attack from the Archon. Scales player sacking the Hangerback Walker as we thought. Getting 5 Thopters. Scales player blocking with a Thopter here. To stem some of the bleeding. There's the Zabaz. Extra 2 counters being put on the Patchwork Automaton. An extra counter being put on the Zabaz here. Looks like we have some talk of triggers being on the stack. Oh, no. The Ozolith triggers putting the counters it has onto the Patchwork Automaton. Looks like we got a heavy swing here, leaving a Thopter back. taking us down to 7, it looks like. There's a Ren and 6 for the creativity player. And that'll be a big swing there, taking it down to take out the Thopter that's in the way. Taking us to 10 to 11, drawing, discarding, sacrificing a creature for the trigger off the Archon. And hitting for 6 in the air as well. Looks like we may end up having a slight misunderstanding here with the land. I'm sure that'll be cleaned up. Inkmoth Nexus being played for the Scales player. Activating the Inkmoth Nexus. There's a lightning bolt targeting the Nexus. And there's the Leyline Binding. Paying for and targeting the Patchwork Automaton. All right. Looks like we have 2 Thopters coming at the Ren and 6, and Zabaz coming at the 5-color player here. Untapping. That's sending us to 5 to 5. Yep, and there was the land. Got that taken care of. And there's an attack. First trigger taking us to 8 to 2. Doesn't even need to show the creativity here, but that is game. And moving on to game 3. Thank you all again for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. Heck of a second match there in the game. Of course, like and subscribe, as we tend to tell you in these videos, if you enjoyed the content. I definitely enjoy having both Hardened Scales and creativity represented here. Two decks that don't always get the amount of coverage as you'd like to see. Creativity definitely has a lot of interactive tools. And in this matchup especially should lean in on those tools. As we saw in Game 2, Pick Your Poison was a heck of a sideboard option for the creativity player. Expect to see more of that here in the modern format. 3 modes for 1 mana. Turn 1 Hardened Scales. Yep, and looks like cracking, going to 17 and playing the Prismatic Ending to get rid of the Hardened Scales here. There's a Saga turn 2. And a Welding Jar, Walking Ballista for the Scales player. Looks like there's a mountain. Into a lightning bolt. Into another lightning bolt after the Welding Jar is cracked. Urza Saga trigger. Land for turn and pass. Looks like we are cracking the wooded foothills here, finding the stomping ground. Into a Pick Your Poison to get rid of the Urza Saga. Another Urza Saga from hand. Into an Arcbound Ravager. And a Zabaz. Attacking, putting us 10 to 20 it looks like here. And looks like we have a pass. There's the Ozolith. And looks like we are attacking in for 6 initially here. Could be pushed to 7. Yep, looks like we're going to get a Car Instruct made to push it to 7. And we have have a cycle of a triome here. Going to 3 to 20. Fetching down to 2. To find the dwarven mind, casting the creativity. And there is the Archon, bringing us up to 5 to 17. Getting to draw a card. And I believe no cards in hand for the Scales player. But sacking the Zabaz. But that should do it. Finding or making another construct here off the Urza Saga. Pumping them up, making blocks difficult. And the Ozolith will put counters on. As game, set, match. Thank you all so much for watching us here at MTG Scoundrels. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content. And catch us next week as we continue to promote the modern format. Thank you so much again. Have a great week.